It goes without saying that all the guests we have on the Get Off Our Lawn show are such a treat. Just such a joy to have. Everyone has a great story, and we love them all. But I can say, this next guest we have is a treat wrapped in a treat, topped with treat sprinkles with treat whipped cream. I told Dave this time not to tell me who the guest was, and just to have him surprise me. And that he did. I can tell you this classmate is a musician, an HVAC engineer, a ghost hunter, a tour guide, a published author, and a historian. And we had such a great conversation with this fellow classmate. And the only way you're going to find out who this is to keep watching the Get Off Our Lawn show with me and Dave and see who we got a chance to talk to. It was awesome.
My Lord!
So David asked me to select somebody from the class and not tell Dave who it was.
Oh, okay.
And
Great
so,
surprise.
Okay.
so I see your stuff on Facebook all the time, and it's so cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And so I was like, that would be a fun interview to do.
Well, let me start out. First of all, how are you doing? Dave, are you still playing music?
I am still playing music. I'm still involved in bands. We had a gig last weekend. So we got a little top 40 party band that plays around the Raleigh area. We do from Raleigh to the coast, I'd say. And so
Top
we
40?
do, pardon?
What kind of top 40?
Oh, well, what we would used to call top 40, right? Now it's like 80s and dance music and, I know the names of the songs. I don't even know some of the bands that play them, but
Stuff that they want to hear at a party.
stuff that they would want to hear at a party, they would want to dance to. And, right now, the 80s are real big, like the Journeys and, some Boston stuff, Pat Benatar, that kind of stuff. Doobie Brothers,
Well, it was good stuff.
Hall and Oates, all that kind of thing, right? So, last week, 2 weekends ago, we did a party for the Shriners, the guys with little hats and stuff like that,
Oh,
little
yeah.
cars. They were
My
racing around.
stepfather was a Shriner. He was a Shriner. Yeah.
Very cool.
The little clown cars.
Yeah,
Actually, the Shriners do a lot for the burn centers.
they do.
Kids.
You do a lot of great charity work.
Yeah, this particular event was their annual fundraiser right around the Valentine's Day dance kind of thing. And they raise some god awful amount of money for the local hospitals and some of the different kids medical condition things.
And Dave, how are you doing?
So yeah, I'm still playing. I'm not in any bands. I play enough to keep saying that I can still play. All my career bass playing was done pretty much in the military. I got a chance to tour with Air Force Tops in Blue and go perform for the troops.
Yeah.
1993. Yeah, I got to do that. And that was via a whole bunch of Air Force talent contests that I started in 1982, and eventually made my way to finally made the team for the 1993 team. And I got to play bass in 38 different countries.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Impressive.
Yeah, and
That's cool, man.
that's a big hand to Dave. Dave, he got me into bass playing and watching you guys play, and it just went from there. And when I got in the military, I just kept going with it, and yeah, had a good career. I mean, that wasn't my main career in the Air Force. It was like a side thing going on, but yeah, it was great. So I play enough just at home just to still know that I can still play, but no bands or anything like that. Yeah.
Dave Seymour is an excellent bass player. He always has been.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've, I've always.
I remember when he was playing, what did you play in school band? It was like, you played some brass instrument.
Well, I played saxophone through the years.
That was it. Saxophone. Yeah,
I was
that
back
was
with
it.
Phil Baki and Laurie Munson and those guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
And then I saw you play in several bands though, and you were pretty good on that bass, man.
well, thank you very much. Now,
Yeah.
I don't want to jump the gun here.
No, I just wanted to, I haven't seen, I know Dave, I also know that Dave, you had some tragedy in your life, and I feel bad about that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, we lost our son 16 years ago.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And he was a bass player too.
Well, I didn't realize that AJ played bass.
Yeah, he played bass. Yeah, well, he started to about so he passed away at 23. He started about 19. He started playing, and matter of fact, the last thing he and I played together was Pink Floyd.
I was
Awesome.
going to say probably Comfortably Numb would be my guess.
Yeah, it was. That was his last time him and I played together. But he was a huge Rush fan and liked all the progressive rock and stuff like that. Yeah. Yep.
I don't make music like that anymore.
That's
No,
a
they
fact.
don't.
That's a fact.
That is a fact.
So Pat, typically what we do, the biggest thing we do on this show is we're bringing back old classmates to find out what happened to them after school. What how their life went on, and you can say as little as you want, as much as you want, but we're just trying to learn what happened to our fellow classmates after we got out of school. And that's basically
What they're up to.
Yeah, that's the theme of our show. What you guys been up to? What you been up to since we left school?
Well,
So the first question of the day is, you graduated, you were on the football. Did you graduate on the football field with us?
yes, I did.
Okay. So what
I was
happened after you walked off the football field?
Oh, I tried my hand. I actually played music for several years. You remember, you used to play in bands with Toby.
Yep.
And I played with him in a band called Centaur in upstate New York
Yeah.
for about 3 years, 2 years, I think it was 2 or 3 years. We played all over the state.
I was
all
going to
these
say,
places.
you were playing bass at that time, right?
No, I played guitar.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did play bass a couple of times. I've always liked bass. Bass is cool. But I played guitar, and after a couple of years of that, I wasn't happy doing that. Just for various reasons. And then I quit the band and I moved to Florida, where my mom was.
Okay.
And that was in 1983, I think it was.
Okay.
And 84 maybe. And I came to Florida, and I went to music school in Florida.
Really?
I went to Indian River Music College. Yeah. And I did not graduate from that because I went to work, and I started working. I started working in. Go ahead.
I was going to say, could I ask, what was the goal of trying to go to music school? What did you want to do after you got out of a music program?
I loved music so much, and I wanted to learn how to read music. That was always a goal.
All right.
How to read it. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I just loved music, and that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a music teacher or anything like that.
Well, I didn't know if the goal was to try and better a performance or or be a music teacher. Like a lot of people go to school for, music ed or whatever.
I just wanted to better myself because like you both, I love music more than anything else,
Yes. Yeah.
And I always have. It's just, to me, that's what makes life worth living is music, and it makes me happy in my soul. But a lot of things, as I get older, a lot of things make me happy in my soul, not just music. So I went to work, and I got a job repairing condominium decks on a swing scaffold 7 stories off the ground.
Wow.
And back then I was making $7.50 an hour doing it, and I thought I was making really good money back
That's
then.
good
man.
bread back in the
Oh,
80s.
you're,
yeah.
you're on top of the world, no pun intended.
Yes, I was. And I did that for a while and I got laid off from that job after the work was finished. And I did not like getting laid off at all.
Right. Yeah.
Because it had nothing to do with my performance or how I was doing. It just, they ran out of work and I
Yes.
got laid off.
Yep.
So what I did after that is I wanted to find a career that I would never get laid off again. So
Okay.
I live in Florida. And as you guys know how Florida is, I said air conditioning.
Okay.
So I got a job in air conditioning as an installer for an air conditioning company. And that was in 1986.
Okay. All right.
So I worked at a company that did work on Jupiter Island, which is one of the richest place per capita, richest people in the world. And we did installations in those houses and mansions and stuff like that.
In nice
And I
little
started-
beach houses, right?
Yeah. Well, you got people like the Dillons and the
Yeah. Yeah.
Whistlers and, just very wealthy people.
Right.
And
Right.
I live in Hobe Sound, Florida, which is a pretty cool place. Hobe Sound is a pretty cool coastal place right on the ocean.
Is that where you're living
And,
now?
yeah, well, I live in a little town called Salerno, which is a
Mhm.
fishing village
Okay.
near Stewart, Florida, or West Palm Beach, if you know where that is, West Palm Beach or Port St. Lucie.
Okay. That's like north
So
of north of Tampa.
Tampa's on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast.
Oh, what was I thinking about there? I'll have to look at my map again.
Yeah, Tampa's on the other
Tampa's
side.
west coast.
Yeah.
But what's right on there? What's north or south of you? There's another major city of you, probably within an hour.
Fort Pierce, Vero Beach
Maybe
is north. South is West Palm Beach, Florida.
that's what I was
or
thinking about. West Palm
Fort
Beach.
Lauderdale,
Yep.
Miami.
Okay.
So I live right 2 miles from the ocean.
Nice.
And so I did that for about 6 years. I worked for that company.
Okay.
And then I got a job with another company in West Palm Beach, Florida for more money.
Yeah.
And I worked there. I worked in the field there for 14 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I moved into the office as an estimator and like a project manager.
Yeah.
Moved into the office there. I did that for another my math is a little messed up here. 9 years. I worked at that company for about 23 years as a
Okay.
sales and design consultant.
So that was like
And-
from the early 90s to about 2010-ish, 12-ish.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And then I started to get interested in teaching. I got a job at Lake Worth State College as a air conditioning instructor.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
And I did that 2 nights a week. I went back to college and I got a degree in operations management technology,
Okay.
which was paid for through a scholarship program at the company I worked at.
Nice.
And then I
so you were still doing
started to,
you were doing
What's
a
that?
full-time you were doing full-time gig and then teaching at the school at night.
yeah.
Okay.
And I was going to school for the operations management at the same time.
Okay.
So, you reach a certain point in your life where you want to make a mark and you want to get somewhere. So it happened a little bit later in life for me, but
Mhm.
that's what I did. And then I teach school. I taught school for about 10 or 11 years.
Okay.
I just recently stopped. I went to the state of Florida and I got my contractor's license,
Okay.
certified air conditioning. And I started to teach CEU classes, continuing education units for contractors. I got one of those coming up in about a month.
Okay.
I had to stop my 2 nights a week teaching gig because it was just, I had myself overextended. And I was kind of going crazy. I had too much stuff going on.
Too many things on your plate. Yep. Understand.
Yeah.
yeah. That
So-
happens. That happens very quickly.
Yes, it does. And then I got another job with another company after that as a project manager for TWC Services,
Mhm.
which is a large corporation with branches all over the East Coast of the United States, from Miami to South Carolina.
Is that
Nothing
still,
up. What's
still,
that?
still HVAC related?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, Dave, where do you live now?
I live in Raleigh.
We have a branch near you in Charlotte,
Okay.
the company. Yeah. And Dave, where do you live?
Just outside of Pittsburgh.
Okay. Nothing up that, we don't have anything that far north. But they have a lot of branches. So I got a job there as a project manager. So my title there is a senior project manager, and I
Okay.
have 2 other project managers that work under me and a project coordinator. And my territory is basically Key West to Sebastian, Florida, which is
Okay.
almost the whole east coast of Florida.
Yeah.
Now, is
And
that residential, commercial, industrial?
no residential,
Okay.
really. It's all commercial mostly.
Yep.
Very little. But I also have a side business. I do heat load calculations and duct design
Okay.
for anybody that wants it. I have a couple of engineers that I work with, and they hire me to do heat load calculations and design stuff. I design air conditioning systems, basically. That's what I
Size them
do.
right for whatever. Because you,
Yeah.
you must be working on, along with the commercial stuff, are there any server farms or extraneous cooling situations where you got like big equipment that you got to keep cool?
Yeah, we do blood plasma freezers.
Okay.
Minus
Oh, yeah.
minus 30 centigrade.
Wow.
We got a couple of those going on, and stuff like that, big refrigeration stuff.
Yeah. No, that's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
So in all that,
Yeah.
and all that, and you're still playing music somehow, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I still play music. I learned how to play the fiddle.
That's
I've
amazing.
always, huh?
That's great. I got a violin sitting over here I've been wanting to get into.
Yeah. I actually sat down and learned it. I got to the point where it didn't sound like stepping on a cat.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And then I can actually make sounds on it.
Yeah.
Like I am definitely not an excellent violinist or fiddle player. I started too late in life.
Yeah.
Like I used to go to bluegrass festivals, and you would see like a 9-year-old kid just wailing on that thing,
cranking on it. Yeah.
and it would make you want to say, "Oh God, what am I doing?" But I think that a young kid should start playing music at a very young age, because their minds are not cluttered.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is how I blew it, because I didn't start playing until what Dave? We were 10th grade, 11th
Well,
grade.
I mean, it's relative. I think high school is fine, or even grade school is fine too. It's like, it's just getting exposed to it. I always found it traveled well, right? No matter where you went, you could find a group of people that would want to make music with you,
Yeah.
True. It's true.
And so, that was one of my first introduction. I moved to Boston in the early 80s, found friends through music up there, moved down to Raleigh, found friends through music down here. It travels well, right? And then people always need bass.
There's a lot of people. Yeah, bass player. Yeah, man. Yeah.
You talk about job security, right?
Yeah, like everywhere you go, they have live music. Down here, there's live music everywhere.
Yep.
You are.
Never stops.
Right.
So they need it. They need that. I don't think it pays enough to people.
No.
To do it. But
I mean, that was unless you're going to go all the way, right? Record contracts and tours and the whole mess. Local music, you usually need, that's a side gig, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
And you probably wouldn't even be happy if you got up to that level. With it. If you had to do it for a living and you had to perform and you had to chug out stuff all the time, you probably wouldn't even have as much fun.
it's one of those things, right? If your hobby becomes a chore, then it's work.
Yeah.
Right?
I can tell you from direct experience, after I toured in 1993, I was mentally and physically exhausted.
Mhm.
I couldn't wait to stop doing it.
Yep.
I didn't want to touch my bass for a year.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, it was rewarding beyond, you know,
Right.
giving back to the troops and playing for their families and letting them forget about life for an hour and a half was all great. And you get to meet all kinds of great people and famous people and whatnot. But it was harder than Desert Storm, Desert Shield. It was absolutely grueling.
Yep.
Yeah. So, we play out, a couple times a month, and that's about as much as we can take, especially at given our age.
Yeah.
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 That's cool, man.
Well,
So another thing I started doing was I started writing books.
Oh,
now
Yeah.
now I hadn't heard any of the other stories there, but this is where I saw your Facebook page, right?
Yeah.
And I saw you starting to write books and things like that. So tell us all about that.
Well, I've always loved books. I've been a reader my whole life.
Uh-huh.
I loved good stories, and I've always loved to write, but I never really pursued it that much.
Uh-huh.
And when I got down here to Florida, I started hanging out with a bunch of guys that were history buffs, like archaeologists and amateur archaeologists that like go out with metal detectors and find cool stuff and on old battlefields and stuff like that. And I got involved with the Loxahatchee battlefield preservationists. Some friends of mine found a site that had 2 Seminole War battles were fought on the site, and they found grape shot and like all this cool stuff. And the place was so beautiful, and the park that it's in, and the story was so good that I came up with the story in my mind.
Mhm.
So I wrote it down. I wrote the whole thing out, and I actually published it.
Yeah.
I published the story, and I started to sell it around the area, and a lot of people liked it and were buying it.
Uh-huh.
So that led to it opened up like a can for me of stuff, of something that I really love to do. So I wrote my second book, which was The Pirate Santos, Curse of the Treasure Coast. I love pirates.
Indeed.
I live on the Treasure Coast of Florida where the 1715 fleet disaster happened.
Okay.
It's Treasure Coast of Florida. So great stories there. So I wrote a book about a pirate. And that book was pretty well received locally. And a company called History Press from South Carolina
Uh-huh.
saw the books online and contacted me and asked me if I wanted to write a book, a local book of some kind.
Okay.
So my wife, who's in the other room right now, I've been married for 32 years now. I met her here, and my wife loves the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
She is a fanatic on the paranormal. She is a believer.
Okay.
So everywhere that we go, we travel, we always take the ghost tours. Like we go to St. Augustine, they have ghost tours. And we took a couple of them, and man, they were fun, going around at night and hearing all this weird sordid history about places. And ever since I came here to Florida, I always heard these stories about these native Indians that were here, or that site over there where these 2 Spanish monks were burnt by the native Indians. And there's all these, every town has these local stories.
Yeah.
So my wife and I decided we were going to document them. So we went like a series of like 8 towns, starting with Sebastian through Stewart, Fort Pierce. It's really kind of a heavily populated tourist area where we live. So I pitched this book to History Press. It was called Ghosts of the Treasure Coast.
All right.
And they liked the idea. And my wife and I got together. We had 6 months to write it. We wrote that one together. She did all the photography. She took the pictures, but we used a lot of historical photographs.
Right.
We put the book together, and they published it. And the book turned out to be extremely popular locally. They sell that book everywhere down here. They sell it at Walgreens and CVS and Barnes and Noble and all the bookstores and online. that book was really popular. Right? We never realized how popular that subject is.
Yeah. Huh. That's
So we
great.
got an idea to start another side business, which is we actually do ghost tours in the little town that we live in here in Salerno, Port Salerno ghost tours. So
Okay.
I found out all these sordid stories about this little fishing town we live in, and I put them all together, and we do tours, and we've been doing that now for about 11 years, and they're really popular locally. People like to do them, and
Yeah. Is that like a walking tour at night or something? Or
yeah, it's at night, and my wife has all the meters. Like if you see on the show, like you ever watch the paranormal
Ghostbusters,
shows,
right?
on Travel Channel? Yeah, the meters. They're EMF meters.
Yeah.
So we did a tour Saturday night. We had how many? 12 people, and
Okay.
it was fun. We had a great time.
Sounds like an absolute ball. I'm coming to Florida now. I'm coming down.
Yeah,
bro.
it was
That's
a lot of
gotta be
fun.
great.
Yeah, and I wrote another book called The Legend of the Nightland, which I put out. I just released a year ago, and that one is pretty popular. So my wife and I stay pretty busy. Like this coming weekend, we're going to we're doing a Seminole War reenactment out at Lake Okeechobee. It's got cannons and guys running around, and we set up our little tent and we sell books.
Yeah.
My wife sells sage and stuff, and we do that like every weekend. Now this is the festival season down here because it's
Right.
winter time here, not like winter where you are. It's about
no.
70 degrees out. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
Exactly.
This is the time when we make our money, doing that.
Do you take this on the road a little bit up the coast as it gets warmer, up into South Carolina, Georgia, whatnot?
I'm working full time, so no.
Okay.
I'm still working. I got about another 5 years probably
Yeah.
before I retire.
I'm trying to
65,
figure out when you do all this stuff, man, because you're like,
Yeah. My question is my question is when are you going to decide? You know what? I think I'm going to chill out for a while. When does that happen for Pat? when do you make the big mad decision?
That's why I quit teaching school. I didn't teach this year because I had something had to go. Something had to give.
No kidding. Yeah. That's incredible.
now when do you run your tours? Is it like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or
Just Saturday nights, and they're by reservation only.
okay?
Because we do the tours ourselves. We don't like some tours. They hire a college kid that just reads the script.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my wife and I actually do the tours.
That sounds like a very fun
Dave,
time.
we got to get some links, Dave. We got to get some links for this stuff.
Yeah, Pat, send me the links to any of your books and or your
I want it all.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, man.
and we'll stick them up on the YouTube thing underneath the link, the video or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, we last December, the local museum. We're members of the Martin County Historical Society,
Okay.
and the Elliott Museum is right here in town. And I'm a tour guide at the historical site on Hudson Island, the House of Refuge, Gilbert's Bar House of Refuge. And
Okay.
I do a lot with the museum. So there was a television show that's on the Travel Channel. It's called Expedition Unknown.
I've seen
with,
that.
Josh Gates,
Yep.
this guy. Well, they approached the Elliott Museum and asked them about this subject, the Ashley Gang, who are these bootleggers and smugglers that lived in this area in the 1920s and robbed a whole bunch of banks, and that supposedly they hid money down here.
Mhm.
And Expedition Unknown got a wind of this and approached the Elliott Museum that they wanted to do a episode on it. So my friend Steve Carr, they asked, who knows the area around the river really well that we can use. So he pointed to me, gave him my name. So they approached me, and now we filmed for 2 days. So I'm going to be on this television show on the Travel Channel, one episode of it. I don't know how it is, but I don't know how much of it they're going to use.
Right.
Because you know how television is, they'll film
Yep.
for 2 days, and you might be on there for
For
2.5
15
minutes.
seconds, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Snipping out.
I'll send you the link when that's gonna come on. And
Yeah.
you'll be able to get it online and stuff, I'm sure, even
Very
if you don't
cool.
watch.
That is fun.
So I have to ask, since we've talked about pirates and treasures and stuff like that, I'm curious as to your opinion about Oak Island.
Oak Island.
What's your thoughts on this? Do you watch the show?
Yeah.
Okay. What's
Now,
your
That
thought process?
guy, Gary Drayton, he
Yeah.
lives in Bureau, the
Oh.
metal detector guy. He lives on the Treasure Coast.
Okay.
But I don't think they found shit,
They
yet.
have not. They have not.
I mean,
They came from,
for lack of a better term. Well, I mean, I love the show. I love the Lagina brothers.
Yeah.
They're fun to watch. It's all about the search.
Yeah.
It's not about finding it. It's like you like those guys, you like seeing what they do, you
Mhm.
like watching the extremes that they go to, and you're kind of rooting for them. But I don't think they found stuff, but nothing like majorly conclusive as far as I'm concerned.
In
That
your-
would prove.
in your opinion, do you think the whole the mystery of Oak Island has merit to it?
Yeah, I do, because some of the stuff that they've uncovered, like the gravel road,
Yeah.
that if you follow the show, you've seen that.
Oh yeah.
They found that gravel road.
Mhm.
I mean, somebody built that thing. Somebody
Somebody-
built it. And
Right. Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, there's some merit to it, but I don't, as far as the system of tunnels under, 200 feet underground, and I don't know. I have questions about that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have, I don't know. What do you think?
You're right. It's all about the search, and they draw you in. I followed from the beginning, and I try not to be the frustrated viewer of okay, so they went another 50 feet down, found a layer of rope and log, stuff like that. Then they found out it was flooded. How did it get flooded? Let's go to the swamp and find out if there was some sort of a water reservoir that was coming in from this way. And I was intrigued by the logistics they were using to find the different ways to get to the different levels. But the whole flooding thing was, I'm like, I mean, you're on the water. The whole flooding thing was perplexing me. There's going to be water there. And the people, if there was something buried there that deep through all this different levels of structures, they had to hit water. And the whole landmass versus putting treasure perplexed me.
Yeah. You have to remember it's a television show.
That's
And
it. That's why I had to keep going back. This is for entertainment. This is
Yep.
for entertainment. Some stuff doesn't make sense. Doesn't have to. It's for entertainment. Yeah.
I'm going to break you for 1 second there. We got 8 minutes left on this call, Dave. And
Okay.
I just sent you a second link if we want to continue after the time runs out on this guy. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
I get like 45-minute blocks of time, right? So anyway, keep going. And so I want to know, now that you've talked about that, do you have a favorite, like one or two ghost story, pirate movie, ship kind of stories that are your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite subjects is the golden age of piracy and how it was right here on our coast where I live.
Uh-huh.
Like the Bahamas are about 60 to 80 miles straight west or straight east, sorry, from where I live.
Right.
And that's where it all happened. The 1715, it all happened. It started here on our coast with the 1715 fleet disaster, where they lost 11 ships in one storm. There were treasure ships coming from Havana back to Spain, got hit by a hurricane, and it pushed all the boats into the shoreline and smashed them all right along our shore, which is why they call this the Treasure Coast of Florida.
I see.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Now,
I
so
mean, I-
these
Wow.
ships were taken gold and whatnot from.
Well, the
South
Spaniards had pillaged South America, the Spanish
Right.
Main, for hundreds of years.
Yep.
In these terrible places like the Potosi silver mine in Bolivia.
Mhm.
And they used native slave labor, and they leached the silver out of the out of these mines and
Okay.
took it to Havana. Havana, Cuba was the center of the Caribbean universe. And that was like a staging area for the treasure flotillas that would sail north. We have the Gulf Stream, which runs right along our coast.
Right.
On the old maps, they call it the Bahama Channel.
Yeah.
So windborne shipping, they would use that Gulf Stream. It goes up the coast and it cuts over at about South Carolina in that area.
Yep, goes
and
up.
almost straight to Europe. And it was like a direct route. So these treasure fleet, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so the goal of these of the ships was trying to take this silver, gold, whatever they mined and stole or worked out and get it back to Europe, right? Either to Spain or somewhere else.
Yep. And a lot of times they did that for hundreds of years, which then they would travel in big groups called flotillas because of piracy, and there was strength in numbers.
Okay.
So there was a war in Europe. It was called the War of Spanish Succession. It was in 1703, I believe, where they were constantly fighting in Europe. The King of Spain had died, and the guy that took his place was the grandnephew. It was the grandson of Louis XIV of France. So what happened was they formed an alliance, France and Spain, and the other European countries did not like this, like the Holy Roman Empire and Britain, and so it started a war called the War of Spanish Succession.
Okay.
And part of the war, part of the tactics were to attack these treasure fleets going back to Spain on a regular basis.
Okay.
So that's when you hear the term privateer. A privateer is different than a pirate.
Okay.
A privateer works for a government and is paid by a government to prey on ships of the enemy.
Gotcha.
And they've been using that for even the United States when they first started didn't have enough money to have a navy, so they hired privateers and they paid piracy. So the privateers would prey on shipping.
Yep.
Well, when that war ended, all of a sudden you had all these unemployed sailors because they were out of work because the Navy let them go. The English, okay, the war's over. You guys have a nice life.
We don't need you anymore, right?
These guys were already familiar with the Caribbean and how it was down there and living in Nassau, and they knew about it. So
they got laid off. What you're saying?
What's that?
They got laid off. So now they need a job.
They got laid off.
That's going to keep them going, right? It's not going to go away.
Exactly. So a lot of them turned to piracy. With piracy, was very lucrative business back then.
I can imagine.
Especially if you got these Spanish treasure ships.
So they already knew the routes. They already knew the boats. They know the area.
Yep.
I was going to ask when they started taking it for themselves.
Yeah, well, they got tired of being dirt poor. Being a pirate on a pirate ship was a lot better than being on an English Navy ship. The discipline was horrendous on Navy ships, and the pay was awful. And a lot of the commanders were brutal, whippings and that kind of thing. Pirate ships, on the other hand, were democracies. If you're a captain, that's why I think like one of my favorite things in history is a pirate ship captain. I know I sound like a little kid when I say that, but the reason I say that is because think about what kind of guy he had to be.
Yeah.
He was in charge of all these criminals and cutthroats, and he had to be a navigator. He had to know how ships were. He had to be a diplomat because if they started fighting or a disgruntled crew, he had to be able to work out problems with the crew, and he had to take prizes regularly. If you didn't produce, they could vote you out. So you think about the charisma that these guys, like somebody like Black Sam Bellamy, who, at 23 years old, had a fleet of 200 pirates working under him, like 8 ships. What kind of charisma did that guy have? Black Side, you know,
Yeah.
when you read about these guys, you can't believe what they did.
And how do you become a leader like that at that age, that quick, with such a different variation of folks working underneath you? That's incredible.
That's right. Yep.
So on that happy little note, you guys want to jump to the next meeting?
Yep.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay,
It
I'm
says-
gonna
Let's-
end this meeting. I sent you both a link.
Okay.
All right, we'll
All
go
right.
there. Back for round 2.
Okay.
All right.
So, so what happened was, the War of Spanish Succession had ended, this 13-year-old war. Spain was in dire straits because they hadn't had their regular treasure fleets for so long because of the war and fears of piracy or privateering. So they were hurting for money. They were used to that constant flow of silver coming from South America.
Yeah.
So where we live here is, we have hurricanes here on the east coast of Florida. I live in Hurricane Alley, they call it. And we got hit by Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Francis about 12 years ago, or that was 2000, longer than that, but
Mhm.
we get hit by hurricanes. So back in those days, the admirals leaving Cuba to go up the Bahama Channel had to take this into consideration this time of year. But what happened was, the King of Spain had, to tell you the whole story, I have to start at, okay, the King of Spain, his name was Philip V. He was the grandson of Louis XIV. Okay. He was a weird guy. He became King of Spain, but he was raised in France. He didn't even speak Spanish. And this is how the royals were back then.
Yeah.
He was known as a weak king. He was inbred, like there was inbreeding going on, and he was like addicted to the carnal delights. You know, he loved, he was just pampered little guy. The best way to describe him is he was a wimp. So his wife died of tuberculosis. Okay. So back in those days, if you got sick,
Mhm.
like they laid her on a bed, she was the Queen of Spain. The physicians were not allowed to touch her. So they had to circle the bed and make their diagnosis from a distance. Yeah, I think, needless to say, she died.
Yeah.
Nobody would want to be the last doctor to work on the Queen because you'd be in trouble if you did that. So they needed a new wife for Philip. So the Chancellery of Spain arranged a marriage for Philip. He got the Duchess of Italy. Her name was Elizabeth Farnese. She already had 3 kids. She was very tough lady. She would go out hunting with the guys. She was a very experienced lady. She took one look at Philip and she said, all right, I'll marry him, but I want my dowry first.
Right.
The
Okay.
dowry was in Havana. 13 years had transpired. They hadn't been able to make the treasure fleets. The silver and gold and emeralds were piling up on the docks in Havana. And it was June. So the admirals in Havana were under a lot of pressure from the Spanish government to get this money here. Plus, Philip wanted to consummate his marriage. And she would not do that until her. So this whole story is about a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about the whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing. So the admirals were under a lot of pressure. So it was late June. These guys were experienced, seagoing people. They said it's hurricane season.
Can't go.
And they were nervous about that.
Yeah.
But they were like us. They were like, oh, we're gonna try it. We'll be okay. Chances are we won't get hit. So they left Havana in late June, and there was 13 ships loaded to the gills with treasure.
All right.
Yeah.
They left Havana Harbor. Everything was good. They say they had 3 days of good weather. They got up along the coast of Florida, like right out here where I live. The lead ship was up around Sebastian, and the last ship was down around Stewart area. They're about 30 miles apart, and the conditions started to change. The air changed, the low swells in the ocean. All the old mariners, their bones started to ache in their muscles, and they knew,
Yep.
and
They knew.
the waves started to come, and next thing you know, 30 to 40-foot seas, they're in a hurricane. The hurricane winds blew the ships in to the shoreline, to the east, like forced them into the shoreline. So that night, 11 of those ships were wrecked on the Florida coast, 30 miles of coastline. It was the worst maritime disaster in history at that time. 1,500 people stranded on the beach in June in Florida.
Wow.
1,000 people drowned. You can imagine what the sharks were like, the sharks
Yeah.
alone. I mean, shipwrecks, all that treasure scattered all over the ocean floor.
Quick question. Now, are you saying all these ships actually made it actually right on the beaches, or they hit reefs off the beach? And then
They would hit the way they would hit the shallow. We have a lot of coral reefs here, like they call it Anastasia rock. It's like a sea coral, and there's a lot of reefs along the coast. So a lot of these ships were wooden, and there were some pretty good sized ones. But if a ship like that runs into a shoreline, even if it's a sandy shoreline, it's under winds like that, it's going to break. And some of the ships actually broke into pieces.
Yeah.
And just scattered. One of them made it into Fort Pierce Inlet, where it sat there at Fort Pierce Inlet and didn't sink, but it ran aground there. So you have this terrible disaster. You have people on the beach. It's 100 degrees during the day. The mosquitoes, if you've ever been down here in the summertime, right about dusk, these things called no-see-ums come out, and they get all over you. So they had to bury people up to their necks in sand to keep them from going crazy. They had no water. There were hostile Indians along the Florida coast called the Ais that actually saw them. They saw what had happened. You had the sun pounding down. Some people just dropped dead. I mean, they just had heart attacks. They couldn't. It was just so much trauma.
Huh.
So you had that. You have all these shipwrecks. Well, they didn't even know about the shipwrecks because they had to send boats up to St. Augustine and then a couple lifeboats back to Havana. But within a couple of weeks, word got out. And the Spaniards actually started a salvage camp, and they got some divers, like they get slave divers, Native American slave divers or from the islands, and they brought them on boats. And they would take them out there in the little boats, and they would see where the wrecks were. Some of the wrecks were still sticking above the water, and they would send these divers down there, hold your breath, and scatter up as much treasure as you can, bring it back up here.
Yep.
And if you got the bends and died, they just bring another one. You can bring another guy. Come on.
Yep.
So, and they use diving bells. And they take you down there in diving bells. And for the first 6 months, they really got a lot of the treasure out. They got a good chunk of it out, and they hid it in chests at their salvage camp. They didn't have any scuba gear or anything. Like, you can imagine, what that was like. So somebody else found out about these wrecks. All those unemployed sailors I told you about earlier.
Right.
So they started, the governor of Jamaica sent a guy named Henry Jennings with privateer letters of marque. He wanted to go, his orders were to go there and secure the site. Secure that site, the English.
Yep.
Henry Jennings was a pirate.
Mhm.
So he had about 300 men and another ship, another captain called John, his name was John Wills. And they sailed from Jamaica up to that site. And they found the salvage camp. and they got off their ships and marched up there with their drums drumming and attacked the salvage camp, the Spanish salvage camp. And they coerced the Spaniards and told them where the treasure was. And they took all the treasure that the Spaniards had spent all that time getting, salvaging.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they took that back to Jamaica. And that was the beginning of the golden age of piracy in the Caribbean, because a lot of the pirates, would prey on ships in the Gulf Stream area, and they found out that Nassau in the Bahamas was the best place to settle because no one really lived in Nassau at that time.
Sort of launch from
actually-
there, right?
What's that?
Kind of
Yeah,
a
it was a
home base.
great launching place,
Home
right
base.
there on the Bahama Channel. And you had guys like Benjamin Hornigold and Charles Vane and Blackbeard. You've heard of him. I mean, guys like that lived in Nassau at that time, and Black Sam Bellamy, and they saw a good way to make a lot of money easy.
Yeah.
But if they had a slow day, a lot of them would go to Palmera de Ace, which was the site of these shipwrecks, and they would dive for treasure.
Gotcha.
Even back then.
Yep.
They would dive down there and see if they could scoop up.
See if there was anything left, right?
Yeah. And the problem was that a lot of the treasure was inside of wooden chests and inside rooms, locked rooms and stuff like that.
Okay.
But today, that's a different story.
Yeah, yeah. So they're still diving to this day, right? To find that one extra room, one extra chest.
Well, about 5 years, 2015, which was
Yeah.
the 300th anniversary of the wrecks. Some guys I know that have the salvage rights up around Sebastian found 300 gold coins in 15 feet of water in Wabasso. Some of them they were called royals. They were for the King of Spain himself. Priceless. And gold looks as good as the day you lost it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
Silver, this is a piece of 8 from one of those wrecks, but it doesn't look like this when you find a silver. It turns
It's
black.
tarnished. Yeah.
Yeah. But gold, but
Yeah.
needless to say, those guys,
They're set.
are doing okay.
Yep.
But they've been diving for treasure on those wrecks for about 40 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
And
can
still-
imagine. I mean, with the currents and the way the beaches change and all that kind of stuff, I imagine that stuff circulates back up or gets buried deeper, comes back up, that kind of thing. So there's always a chance, right?
So if you have a metal detector,
Yeah. Yeah.
you wait till after a storm or a hurricane,
Right.
then you go out there on the beach and
Where
people
everything's
find
stirred up.
stuff. Yeah, they
Oh,
find
even-
to this
even-
day.
Even walking on the beach.
Yep.
Huh. Because I imagine, they must, it churns up real good there.
They found a Kip Wagner, he was a guy back in the 50s. He was a building contractor that lived in Wabasso. He started finding coins that were dated about 1715, nothing later than that. So they thought that the shipwrecks originally were down around the Marquesas in the Florida Keys, but he proved that the wrecks were up this way.
Or more
And
north.
he's the guy that hired a guy you might have heard of, Mel Fisher. You ever heard of Mel Fisher, treasure hunter?
Can't say I have.
He found a Atocha off the Marquesas,
Oh, that I have.
400 million in gold, silver, and emeralds back in the late 80s. Mel Fisher is like a big rock star down here. Everybody loves Mel Fisher because he's got 2 museums. He's got one in Key West and one in
Yep.
Sebastian. But he started treasure diving here on the Treasure Coast.
Very cool.
So basically, the entire coast where I live is a graveyard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's my favorite.
And been a repository for riches for over 300 years now.
Yep.
It's amazing.
And that was a wreck, but they've had thousands of wrecks.
Yeah,
That's
so
just one. That was a big one.
Yeah.
They've used the Bahama Channel. How many
Yeah.
shipwrecks are there? For hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Now that's pretty cool. Now I'm gonna steer it a little bit different. Now I was looking at your Facebook page here recently because I see your posts come up, right? And I
Yep.
see some stuff about the war, and I see some posts about Freeville,
Yep.
and maybe an uncle was what it was?
My Uncle Bob.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your Freeville Dryden history discoveries.
Well, my family has been around there forever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know, like, there was some German community back at the during when all the immigrants came here and they ended up here. I don't know when exactly they came to this area, but the Shaver family, and they've lived in the Freeville, Dryden area for probably close to 200 years, 150 to 200 years, or maybe even longer. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But my grandmother passed away, and she gave me a whole box of stuff, pictures and documents, and I kind of put it in the back of my garage. I live in Florida. I've lived here for 35 years now, and
Right.
I look at it every once in a while. But recently, I started to make contact with a bunch of people from Dryden, from that area. I see them on Facebook, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? Maybe they would find some of this stuff interesting because I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started looking through stuff, and hey, that's got historical significance. So I scan it and put it up there and see what people think about it.
Yeah.
My Uncle Bob, the one I recently posted about,
Uh-huh.
when I was a kid, back when we were all three of us were in school,
Yeah.
my Uncle Bob was not, he was a kind of a oddball. Like, he never really fit in anywhere.
Okay.
He had a really bad alcohol problem.
Mhm.
But when I saw him when he was sober, he was amazing. Like, he could walk on his hands, look up and down stairs. He could play clarinet like Benny Goodman. He was a
Mhm.
house painter. He had like a painting business, and he was such a good painter that in the Freeville area that people would put him on a waiting list, like,
Yeah.
so he could do their house.
And what was
And-
his last name?
Bauer.
Bauer.
Yep.
Okay.
He had some issues, man. But
Yep.
he was probably the funniest person I ever saw. He was hilarious. Like, every time I see him, he would try to crack me up by doing outrageous things. Like he refused to grow up.
Yep.
And he didn't really fit in my little kid definition of grown up. You know,
Right.
he didn't really fit that. He's Bob. He's like this grown up kid.
Yeah.
And he would get so drunk, like, he'd been thrown out of every bar in town. He would get so drunk that he would try to find my dad's house
Okay.
in his drunken stupor, and he would pass out underneath some guy's window. He thought that was the house, and the guy would wake up and call the cops, and there's a guy sleeping on my yard.
I'm sorry to laugh. That's
No, but he would do stuff like, he knew where I worked. Like,
uh-huh.
I worked at a local grocery store there in Dryden, and he would come into the front of the door of the store, and he would just shout my name from the front of the store, like, in this, like, hey, stuff like that.
That's great.
So he always by himself. He had a couple of girlfriends, but they were, girlfriends.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
never had, no woman would ever marry him, I don't think, not the way he was. So I always loved Bob.
Uh-huh.
To me, he made my growing up experience better because he was outside of the norm.
Right.
And I love that about him. But recently I was going through the stuff that my grandmother gave me, and I found this photograph of a World War II battle scene with a picture of my Uncle Bob as a young man in uniform superimposed on it.
Yeah.
And a letter from, and I read the letter, and I posted it on there, but it was from some commanding officer about the 95th Infantry, and he was commending them on exemplary performance in this battle of something about the Ruhr area of Germany in 1945. And they were telling him what a great job he did. And my uncle's name was at the bottom of it. It said, "You were there."
Yeah.
And when I read about the battle, there was like 10,000 US soldiers were killed at this battle. And it started to make sense to me why Bob,
And Bob made it out.
like when the problem I have, and you're in the military, Dave, so you know, like a lot of these guys, they have these horrific experiences in
Mhm.
wartime and battle, and I'm sure you have too.
Mhm.
And then you're expected to come back to society and just join it as if
Yeah.
nothing ever happened.
Yeah, just
You know,
reintegrate. Yeah.
you spend your life, they tell you, "Thou shalt not kill." You know, like I go to religious education class, a little kid in some lady's basement, and and memorize the Psalms, and hey, I could do,
Yep.
and "Thou shalt not kill." But then when you get in the military and you get into wartime situations, well, all that. Well, it's okay right now. We're gonna change the route and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And you know more than anybody what I'm talking about, and that's why a lot of these guys come back with these, post-traumatic stress disorder and.
Yep.
So, and I thought that in that moment, I almost had like an epiphany, and like tears came to my eyes when I thought about Bob.
Yeah.
And it kind of answered a lot of questions for me.
Well,
About him.
that clearly shaped him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Had to have. Yeah. Wow.
So I posted that, and if I find some cool stuff in there, I post it. Like there's the band, like the Shavers Orchestra in Freeville. 3 of my ancestors were in that band. It was their band, and they played all these gigs around Ithaca and Freeville back in 1868.
Right. It's like before Tweetman's, right?
Yeah. The West Dryden Hotel
Tweetman's.
before Tweetman's.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh.
That is so cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was. I thought that, and I'm going to continue to look through that stuff and see what other stuff I can uncover.
Yeah, little gems come out. Because I see one here. I'm on your page now, and I see something with Shavers Orchestra in 1888.
Yeah.
Down in Ithaca.
That's them.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow.
Very cool. They're all working musicians. That is great.
Yeah.
How much time
So
we
I
got
have,
on this link? How much time we got left?
We probably got another 20 minutes or so.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Good. Good.
I mean, we can talk as long as you want.
Yeah. No, I'm in.
Yep.
I grew up there, so
Yeah.
I know the area. I actually have to go up. I have to come up there in June, late June,
Uh-huh.
because I have to bury my mom. My mom
Oh.
passed away a few months ago, and she has a plot up there in the foothills of the Adirondacks area,
Oh,
Watertown.
Yeah.
And I have to go up there and bury her. And you
Well, I'm
can't
sorry
bury
for
people
your
up
loss,
there in the
man.
winter. What's that?
Sorry for your loss, man.
Yeah, we lost my wife's mom. We lost my stepmother, Johanna, in Dryden.
Mhm.
Married. We lost her, and we lost my mother here within 3 months.
wow.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'll be coming up there to do that. I got to go. My dad passed away about 20 years ago of esophageal cancer. So
Mhm.
I got to go visit his grave. And,
Yep.
The older I get, the more I realize how important,
All that
things
is.
are.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it gives you a recalibration pause.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what I'm curious about, just to take a quick tangent here, what are your favorite, or what are your most memorable moments in the back end of our high school days? Whether it was a teacher that affected you the most, Like I know you and I remember you and I were in Chuck Hanley's class for a debate.
Mr. Hanley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Oh,
He was a history teacher.
Yep.
Yep, correct. Yep,
I loved history class.
yep.
Yeah.
It sounds like you did. Now, I
I still
dug out.
think back,
Go ahead.
well, one experience from not high school, but that I remember was, you remember Joanne Sams?
Yeah.
I remember all
She's
the
not
Sams.
around, right? Huh?
I remember all the Sams. Her and her brother. Yeah, I remember the whole
Her brother
family.
Rodney.
Rodney.
Yep.
Well, they were the only black family in our entire school,
That's correct.
right?
Yep, that's correct.
So one day we were in history class and, we're watching this movie. You were showing it.
I was there with you when that happened. I know exactly the thing you're going to talk about.
And it was, they showed Stepin Fetchit. Remember who Stepin Fetchit is? Like this old ridiculous black character that acted all
Right.
goofy in the old movies. And they're showing that. And Joanne got so upset that she left. She started crying and ran out.
Yep,
And I never forgot that.
yep.
I never forgot that.
That is stuck. I remember because Mr. Head was there too, and he had to try to calm her down.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was, when I think about that now, I feel so bad for that kid,
Yep.
for that
Yep.
little girl.
Correct.
I don't know whatever happened to her,
I don't either. I don't know what happened to the Sams family. I don't think Joanne graduated with us.
no,
She didn't. I don't think she did.
I'm not sure what her father did or anything.
I remember the red house they lived down in 13. I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I remember Rodney, played on the basketball team. Always congenial, always fun to talk to. Joanne was, I remember the whole thing.
I consulted the reference document,
Yes.
and Joanne is listed in the graduating class and has a picture.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, just to confirm, but I have no idea what the story is there.
Yeah.
Yep.
But as far as high school goes, I remember hanging out with, I had a little group of guys we hung out with, Gary Rumsey and
Yep.
Kenny Johnson and
Yep.
Hugh Bahar.
Yep.
You
He didn't graduate with us though. I'm still good friends with him. He was here about a month ago,
Oh, yeah.
Really?
and we did some kayaking, and he retired from Cornell University.
Very nice. Yeah,
He was
his
a-
dad was the big cheese up at TC3 for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still friends. We've been friends since we were like 4 years old.
Yeah. I remember hanging out with you. You lived over there on across from Jeff Markle's house over on Lewis Street. Yeah. Next to Matt Bryant's house.
He's retired. He retired.
Nice.
What did he do at Cornell?
He
What
was
did
a
he-
project manager. He ran the heating plant for years. He did a lot of their big projects.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
So Dave, what do you do?
what do I do?
Dave Seymour.
Yeah. I have one more question for you before we move on.
Okay.
Oh, here at the top of my yearbook, you've signed my
Yes.
yearbook, right? Now, do you
Okay.
remember what you wrote?
Absolutely not.
Neither did I until I looked it up today. And but what you're talking about is you remember all those inspiring, haha, in quotes, jam session in Leon's basement.
Yeah. Well, you remember you guys used to play
Yeah.
at Leon Heffron's basement.
That is
And-
correct.
You guys used to play
Yeah.
Minstrel in the Gallery by Jethro Tull. And I was like,
yeah,
oh my God.
that was crazy because that was with Chris. Well, we played in Chris Jordan's basement as well as Leon's basement. But
Yeah.
yeah, Toby and Leon and I was trying to think if there was another guitar player there for a while.
I thought you guys were like 3-man.
We were 3-man for Dave remembers the rockathons we played at the Dryden High School.
Yeah.
where it was the Leon and Toby and Dave show.
Yeah.
And but I was trying.
Hang on, hold that thought. If I may DVR you real quick. Pat, I remember you being a guest bass player during a rockathon. You played bass for Rock and Roll All Night with those guys,
Yeah.
correct? Is that my
I had
correct story?
I had a Gibson grabber somebody let me use for that. Maybe might have been Dave's. Did you ever have a grabber?
I never had a grabber, no. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure whose grabber that is.
But
I don't-
that memory's correct though, right? Weren't you a guest
Yeah.
bass player for a song?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
You got a better memory than I do.
Yeah.
So I got the 10-minute warning again. So Dave, you had another question.
Oh, I don't remember now. Go.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So Dave, okay,
Okay.
Dave,
Yep.
Dave, what do you do?
What
Like
do I
for-
do?
what did you-
So for the last 30 years, I've been a PC board designer, electronics designer.
Okay,
And so I started that right out of I graduated TC3
mm-hmm,
that summer. Right after TC3, I went and started working for a startup. Startup moved from Ithaca to Boston. I was in Boston until 1990 doing electronics. Then they closed down the plant, and they said, would you like to move to Raleigh? So I moved to Raleigh with my wife, Pam. And
I remember Pam.
Yep.
I remember Pam.
And so I designed printed circuit boards for a living.
Awesome.
So I drive a CAD system. I work with the electric guys, the engineers, all that kind of stuff, doing the PC board design. So I
Awesome.
retired a year ago,
Good for you.
and to sort of keep my feet wet, I actually teach. I teach a certification class in PC board design.
Awesome.
And so I do that about every other month, once a quarter kind of thing. And, so it's just like a plumbing or an HVAC license certificate kind of thing. You train guys to do it. And I teach the entry level and the advanced class in electronics.
Awesome, dude.
Then
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it all worked out. I was able to retire last December, January, about a year ago.
Yeah, about a year.
Awesome.
And here was my big deal. I got a local magazine cover. You can see over here on my shoulder here. And
Yeah.
this picture here is me and Roger Dick skiing up at Killington. And I got it up on Facebook, and it doesn't show real well, but I've got that original printout from Roger back in the day, where we took our spring break to go skiing instead of going to Florida.
There you go.
And so that was my thing there.
So Dave Jackson, are you retired too?
So I retired from the Air Force 21 years ago. I retired the Air Force in 2000.
Wow.
20
Cool.
years. I went in 30 days after we graduated high school. I actually enlisted right in the middle of the Iranian hostage crisis. 3 days after we graduated school, I was in basic training. At the age of 38, I had 20 years in, retired from the Air Force. We settled in Delaware, and I worked for Comcast Cable in Delaware for 7 years. And then I got a great job offer with Verizon here in Pittsburgh as a video engineer up here in Pittsburgh when they were starting the FiOS cable system. And I retired from that in 5 months,
Awesome.
and I'm done. I'm done.
Good for you.
Yeah, man. Yep. It's been good.
I got a few years left.
Yep.
It'll go like that, man. And you can just take your time and do whatever. I can't wait. I've been watching Dave do his things, and I'm like, I'm ready. I'm just ready.
There you go.
You get to a point, all I can say is you get to a point where you're like, I'd like to do something else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. Yep.
Well, probably I think 65,
Yep.
65, 66 probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, very common. I was getting jealous because my younger sister, Beth, I don't know if you remember her, but she taught in the New York City, or not New York City, New York State school system. She's up in Potsdam right now with her husband.
Mhm.
And so she graduated when she was or graduated. She retired when she was 55, and she's 3 years younger than I am. And so I was like, how come all these? I saw people like Phil Bakke, retiring from the police force and stuff like that, and I was like, man, I am so jealous. And
Well, down here, you don't, like in the air conditioning trade,
yeah,
you don't really retire from it. You just keep doing it. You
yeah,
do
keep
it to,
doing it. Yeah.
I know guys that are doing it for like 45, 40 years. you
Yep.
know.
Well, I imagine you could also, do it as you wanted to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning you could sort of, like here in Raleigh, we use air conditioners a lot. And so
Yeah.
it's always a crapshoot when you fire up the air conditioner for the first time, like in April or May,
Mhm.
and then you fire up the furnace in like October, November. And that's that's when you find out they break, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, it's generally not in the, I mean, sometimes it's in the middle of summer or the middle of winter, your air conditioner, your furnace breaks, but those changeover transition months are always, so I'm intimate with my air conditioner repairman. So,
Well, it's now today it's a life safety thing. The way they build buildings,
yeah,
you can't be without it.
correct.
Like here,
I mean,
you can't. Not in Florida.
I mean, Raleigh gets, 85% humidity and near 100, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, if you move from your air conditioned house to your air conditioned car, to your air conditioned work, to your air conditioned store, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, whatever it is, you go shopping or grocery shop, right? And you hang out in the frozen food section. So
Yeah.
it's a
But
thing.
I can design duct systems from my computer, just like right here where we're sitting. So
Uh-huh.
I could keep doing that till I'm, 87 years old if I want to.
Well,
But
that was kind of
I would
the
like,
thing. That,
I'm gonna retire, from going to work every day and,
yeah. But my dad contracted off and on, he retired about 67, I think it was, from running his
Yeah.
company. And then he contracted and consulted after that, right?
Right.
You need some walking around, change, you can go back and do a little bit. You can do as much as you want, but you don't have to go every day, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So lots of the guys around here retiring, they go work at Home Depot.
There you go.
Yeah.
No stress, keeps you
Right.
busy.
Yeah.
Yep.
You get these guys that come in and go, you got a hammer? It's like,
Well, if I retire, I probably would work somewhere like at maybe like a historical site or something because to me, that's not work.
yeah,
No, no.
My
Yeah.
wife
If it's a good time, it's not work. If it's fun, it's not work.
selling books. Like my wife and I go out on the weekends. We do these shows, the crafts
Yeah.
festivals. I sell my books, and that's like selling me.
Yeah.
That's like it's like playing music.
Yeah.
You're like part of you, and to me, that's not work.
no, that's exactly it. And so,
Right.
do what you enjoy to do,
Yeah.
that you just didn't have enough time to do previously, it gives you a chance to go out and do it.
That's right.
So we're down at the 2-minute warning, so we should wrap it up in some elegant fashion.
Yeah. Pat, I gotta tell you, this was such a great treat, man. This was such a great treat. And it was a nice surprise for me. Dave told me it was gonna be, this was so awesome. It's great to finally talk to you after, 40 plus years. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, man.
and I'm glad to know you're doing well, and I'm completely riveted. I want all the links, and I'm going to dive into it, man. I'm going to absolutely dive into it. But it's been great, Pat.
Are
So
you
much.
a diver? You
I'm
dive?
not. No, I do not. I snorkel now once in a while, but that's about it. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to getting into all the links you said. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yep.
It's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much.
Likewise,
What's
Pat.
pretty cool about Zoom is
Yeah.
it actually has a setting where you can like make yourself look better on Zoom. It takes out all the wrinkles, and I
Right?
did that.
You
You
got
see,
the,
doesn't my skin look like youthful? And
It looks
It
like you got
looks-
pulled back. It looks like
it
you got
looks-
pulled
Yeah.
back.
yeah,
I just had a facelift.
very supple. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like a setting on there. Because when I first go on there, I'm like, look at the rings under my eyes. I swear to God.
That's great.
Yeah, you're seeing all the words. All right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Pat, I'm so glad that you answered the call and you agreed to do it. Thank you very much for your time today.
I thought it sounded like fun. You know, I watched a couple of your other shows. Yeah, man, this would be fun.
Very cool. This thing's going to time out on me in just
Okay.
seconds. All right. So
All right.
thanks again.
Thanks,
It was
Pat.
great catching up with you. I'm so glad we got
Yep.
to do it.
I don't want this to be the last time either.
No,
No,
we'll talk.
no,
No,
no.
absolutely. Lock that down. Yep.
If you need a place
Okay.
to stop when you're heading north, you can stop in Raleigh.